Some time that Tall is the only one who doesn't need any introduction today. And I promise I make sure that the introduction will be shorter than the panel, which is a challenge. But due to the heavyweights in the panel, I think we're very lucky to have them all on board. I have to excuse our friend Bob Stocker from the US. He was announced to be part of this panel, but due to some urgent client matters, he couldn't make it this year to Tel Aviv, although he was confirmed. Well, our topic is a very interesting one and rare to find because we're talking about liability, and usually liability, certainly if there's an operator on the market, he might be liable for being compliant. But there's not only operators, we have affiliates, we have platform and software providers. And since the market is growing and the online gaming business is going from strength to strength, some regulators try to invent or reinvent new tools to keep black market operators away from their jurisdictions. And so one of the most recent ideas came up maybe about a year ago. It's like policing the market with the aid, with the help of suppliers, of platform providers, of affiliates perhaps, and asking for liability. Different jurisdictions started to think this way. Just to mention a few of them, there is the United Kingdom, Sweden will do it, the drafting regulation right now, and Romania. These three jurisdictions license B2B operators, so providers as well. You have to provide a license if your product, if your software should be operated in one of these jurisdictions. We have Spain and Italy not licensing B2B operators or B2B companies, but asking them, requesting to monitor the traffic and to shut down illegal sites, to block these sites, and not to allow operators to use their software in markets where they don't have a license or where the product is not licensable. That's just as an example. In the UK, there's one very interesting aspect. We call it the 3% rule. If an operator gets more than 3% of his profit, of his turnover in certain jurisdictions, he has to explain to the Commission that his operations in these countries outside of the United Kingdom are not illegal. The same applies to B2C operators. So B2C operators and B2B companies, providers, have to make sure we are compliant in other countries, at least across the European Union or some other whitelisted countries. The interesting thing is, because I'm from Germany, you may know that our regulation is in the middle of way behind and not too far ahead of something. And the only certainty we have is legal uncertainty. And so there's no licensing regime in place. There are many operators, many big sports books operating in the German market, secondary lotteries and casino games and poker rooms, of course. Nobody has a license because there's no license available. So I discussed this question with Jenny Williams, the former chairman of the UK Gambling Commission. What happened if a UK licensed operator approaches the UK Gambling Commission in order to explain that he's fully compliant in all these jurisdictions, and he tells them that he's operating in Germany too. And the interesting answer was, well, Germany is special. If we get a legal opinion of a solid law firm in Germany describing and confirming that this operation is at least not illegal. It's not formally legal, but not illegal because the German law itself is violating this higher ranking European Union law, we accept it. That's a very interesting approach, and that is what happens in praxis. So just as a quick overview, these things happen. Spain went one step further. Spain were claiming back taxes for operators who were present in the market before they got licenses and operated in tax-paying regime under their operations in Spain. So they also shared the opinion that if the operator is not able to pay these back taxes, which is a high amount of money, the platform provider should also be liable. Why? The platform provider takes a certain cut of the revenues, and so it's a quasi-operator in view of the regulator in Spain, and this is what's been discussed. In Romania, they discussed the same approach, but then, fortunately, they left it. But this is kind of risk. Same applies to affiliates. In how far will they be responsible, or will suppliers responsible for affiliates' work, or operators vice versa? It's a cocktail of conclusion of different things. This is something we have to discuss, and I'm happy that we have operators, we have affiliates, we have suppliers here and can discuss this from different angles. The only person we are missing today is a regulator. But I'm sure that Taron, as a legal advisor of the gaming industry, can share some thoughts. Typically, a regulator would contribute to this discussion. And I want to start the discussion now with the first question. Well, in your opinion, should platform providers be licensed and be regarded as liable for compliance of their software when others, operators, use the software? I'd like to start, Vahe, if you don't mind, with you as representing one of the big companies in the field.
Okay, thank you for having me here. As far as the B2B providers being licensed or certified, I think the legislature just has to make sure that the provider's technology is compliant. Since we don't deal directly with the players, holding us liable for what operator does with the player, I think legally is not viable, but every reputable B2B supplier, I think, should have a moral code inside the company to make sure that they don't work with operators who are not treating their players correctly, but directly responsible for what operator does with the player. We cannot be, because we don't know the player quite often. We sometimes get cases where the players contact us and they have some issue with operator, and they find that dealing through regulator or the courts, it's a lot more complicated than just blackmailing the supplier, saying, well, they're using your platform, so you're responsible. And I have no idea what happened between the player and the operator. Legal advisors say, don't even get involved. And others as well say, don't get involved, because that makes you liable, that puts you in jeopardy. But on the other hand, you do want to get involved, because for us, we're a very human company. We feel that this player has some issues, so we want to help him. How do we help him if we don't know who he is, what he did with the operator? So the most we can do is go to operator and say, can you please take care of this player so that he's happy? And the operator might say, you know, he's a fraudster, he's doing this and that and that. And we have to wash our hands, because we can't be a judge. So for legislators, for the regulators to say that the platform supplier who has no connection to the player has to be responsible for a relationship. It's like saying, because I sell gasoline and somebody got into an accident, I'm responsible for the accident, because if I didn't sell him gasoline, he wouldn't be driving, there would be no accident. But that's a stretch by any means.
And that raises an interesting question, because I think what you said is we have to distinguish between two types of liability. There's the question of liability versus the player, the customer, and the other question of liability regarding compliance, regarding regulation and supervising gaming legal authorities. I absolutely agree. You cannot be liable or take or accept any liability as a provider with respect to the customer. It's a B2B, not a B2C business. But the other point, compliance, someone is operating with your software in a jurisdiction where he is regarded as a black market operator. That's the other concern of the discussion. Perhaps you're from the operator's perspective, what would be your take, what would be your impact with respect to these liability issues?
Again, Tal, thank you for having me. I'm in the industry for many years, for 17 years, most of them in the casino vertical. Operators in this vertical, as well as other verticals, experienced major changes. Started in 2006, when the market was based on the US, and then they needed to reinvent themselves. Then in the last few years, when regulation started, everybody had to adapt. It's a lot of resources, it's a lot of time. And also, the environment of operating has changed, because, just in a few words, Until about 4 or 5 years ago, if you wanted to be a serious casino operator, you had basically two options if you wanted to be serious. One to go to Playtech, and the other one to go to microgaming. They supplied you their games and their back office, and you had to work only with their games, only with their back office. You couldn't take other games. Plus, you needed to compete with operators that were owned by those two companies. Then the whole environment changed when a third large company evolved, which is Net Entertainment, the Swedish company. And they said, we're a pure software house. You can take only our games. You can take games from anybody else. And we don't own any operations. And that created a lot of opportunity in the market. The people who took this opportunity are the Scandinavian people mostly, where you can see it in Malta especially. It's the biggest gaming hub in the world today. And if you look at the most successful casino operators in the last 4 or 5 years, they're all Scandinavians. And they took a lot of market share from the Israelis, which have 20 years of experience in this vertical. There is also a trend regarding now to the liability, where operators like to control their own fate. Us too. We saw there is really a lack of, let's say, good back office providers. As Israeli, that's what we see, because we're used to back office like Playtech, which is, you know, a lot of experience was got into this. And Israelis, let's say, are very analytical, and you can work with players in real time. And aggregators that are today in the market, they don't have the same tech ability as what the Israelis are used to. So what, let's say, the successful operations of the last few years, like Leo Vegas, Casumo, I don't know if everybody here heard about them, but those are the new rising stars of the industry. There are others like Geek, Gaming Innovation Group, with brands like Guts and Risk, which are growing very, very, very fast. And they decided to control their own fate by developing their own platform, basically. And that's also the direction that we're going. We're 70% there. And basically, we're going to control our own fate. So personally, I don't mind that, you know, I will need to have like a B2B license in any country. Actually, it might make my life easier, because I control also, I'm liable for the players. Okay, so if they'll regulate, let's say, my B2B side, okay, or the platform side, from me, it's both connected.
Yes, I mean, obtaining a license always offers a certain amount of certainty, which is very helpful. Asaf, from the affiliate side, do you see any common reasons or common issues for liability which we can mention with regard to operators, providers, and affiliates?
Definitely. I think that if you consider the landscape from jurisdictions, there's quite a variation in the spectrum. So, so you described a few jurisdictions that are very, very imposing in the sense that they transfer the liability to the operator, to the affiliate's behavior. In that sense, they consider the affiliate marketing as an inherent part of the marketing conduct and the compliance that applies to it. And that actually changed the model between and the relationship between the affiliate and the operator, in the sense that it has to deal now with transparency, and that's new to this business. People used to be very distinctive in the way that each part used to handle their own metrics and try to improve sometimes on behalf of each other. And that transparency is proved to, I think, to be working very well effectively, because you can see massive operations like Plus 500 that grow year in from affiliate marketing doing this transparent work. So first of all, in terms of the trend, there is a trend for more jurisdictions to apply this type of methodology. And we are seeing it every month with more jurisdictions and with the market's demand for these types of features, which we now support. That's a standard feature in our platform. And I think in the long run, it's going to do good for both sides because it promotes stability and it's going to diffuse the uncertainty with the marketing practices. It's going to standardize this, and so I don't think it's a threat. Maybe a threat to the people that are doing monkey business from the marketing perspective. The operators that have been regulated, there's been a disparity between the two. So there have been problematic affiliates working with very strong operators, and that was going to equalize eventually.
Right. Ron, Tal, do you think, perhaps from a regulator's perspective, are regulators doing the right thing in being such restrictive, such strict and demanding?
Okay, so I'm taking I don't have Jenny Williams with me. She was with us on the ICE panel on February. Yeah. Jenny has been in the Gambling Commission, in the Gambling Commission. Well, let's split it into two ways. First of all, does the regulation, does the right decision? I don't know. I'll analyze it like this. Let's start with what Dor has now spoken, and let's scrutinize it a bit. If we're speaking about the risk allocation between affiliates and the traffic they bring on one side and the operators or binary options broker on one side, I clearly think that the regulators have a good point here, and I will explain. Yesterday I got an email from one of my clients sitting here across the street, and he sent me a PowerPoint presentation that his compliance manager in Cyprus has sent him and told me, like, WTF on the email. What is that? I opened the PPT and I see new regulations entering in Cyprus on which traffic that you get, and that full compliance is now needed on each and every affiliate and funnel that is working. It's amazing. It's weird, but if I see it in my eyes, and I know how this industry works, and I know which challenges it now is going, I think it's a good thing. It's not a popular answer, but I think it's a good thing. Because if years ago, or not that far people just use, I don't know, as you said, monkey business, and how to win money, how to make money, like YouTube, using fake computer software to trade your account and burn your account, all this kind of fraudulent stuff. I think if this industry wants to grow, brokers need to take responsibility even on what their affiliate does. So to answer your question, York, on the affiliate, broker, or operator side, I think that the regulators are going in the right direction. That's on the one side. Now let's speak about what Vi spoke, and I truly agree with what Vi say, and I will explain. It's a difference between affiliating, doing, you know, fake advertising or monkey business than what's going on with affiliates, with the operators and platforms. If we're not speaking about Curacao and other exotic jurisdictions, if we're speaking about an operator like you are operating for Malta, or many of your platforms from GM and other operators that are working on reputable places, I think that at the end of the day, if an operator is working in the best way, it should not impact any license or regulatory status of the platform. Why? The platform doesn't have a direct contact. Yes, it is powering this operation, but again, who is doing the KYC? Who is doing the compliance? Who is doing all the actual operation? Not the platform, the actual operator. There is a reason why the platform gets only 10% of the income. They're not operating everything. And I think that what's going on in the UK, and I'm speaking to this empty chair, but Jenny Williams was sitting here next to me last time in February. I think what's going on with some of the regulators here is not good, because this door that is now open, because they feel it exactly what Vi said, that it's maybe easier to, that the platform will also be some kind of way to minimize the risk. I think it's not good, because practically they might have insurance, they might have reputation. Someone can contact Ivan from Ensoft and say, and try to blackmail Ensoft and saying, you have an operator from Serbia or Croatia or from UK, and he is using your platform and he doesn't pay, and we want you to be liable. I think it's not fair and it's not the right direction. And I do think that should be good regulation and there should be effective regulation, but not that way.
Thank you, Tal. I think it's easy to understand that an operator who is operating under a license in one of these licensing jurisdictions, such as UK, such as Denmark, Italy, and Spain, that's an easy part to discuss with respect to liability with relation to the platform provider, because it's compliance. But there are so-called jurisdictions which we call .com jurisdictions, where there is no licensing regime in place. There is no domestic license and no international license being accepted. Assumed the platform provider has to take a certain risk, has to take a certain liability and accepts this. Would you think, Ivan, these .com markets will be affected as well?
Well, basically, I pretty much agree with what's been said here so far, and I think you're right with the .com sector as well. But I think the one thing that's kind of missing from the whole kind of conversation is the way the regulators are approaching the regulation. I've seen many times, and I've been to Brazil 2 weeks ago, and I've seen the new legislation there and the talks about it. I have a feeling that in not all of them, there's positive examples, but in a lot of jurisdictions, you have regulators who are not involving all the players on the market into the discussion, which leads to misinterpretation and actually guidance that's not really helping the market, but actually making it even tougher. Doesn't matter if it's the operators, the affiliates, or the platform providers. We're kind of on the same boat. So in terms of like regulation, I'm all up for it if the regulator has enough prudence to actually involve everybody on the same table and discuss these matters and find a common solution. Of course, there's not a perfect regulation nowhere in the world, but if you involve all the parties involved, you're definitely going to get a compromise that works for all sides.
Don't you think we covered all the different angles of the liability topic? There's one aspect which remains, because when we're talking about affiliates, they conduct traffic and they create traffic for players to the operator's side. And they also do some kind of advertising. So I think there's a question remaining for us of what can be done to enforce compliance with marketing conduct instructions in the area of affiliate business.
I think it touches the same subject of transparency. So effectively, we see several processes now taking place in these elevated jurisdictions. So first of all, there's a notion of KYC, your affiliate. So you need to understand which organization or entity you're dealing with. So there's less, if someone is marked as problematic or someone has a criminal record, etc., top-end operators will not deal with them. This is one thing. In terms of the advertising itself, there are some jurisdictions, like Japan, for instance, that require each operator to manually audit every website that has their advertising displayed on. And this is now starting to be automated. So automated in the sense where these auditing tools, so facilitating the regulator's requirements. This is one aspect of it. Secondly, there's an enforcement aspect. So only traffic that's whitelisted, only authorized websites, authorized advertising can send traffic, and the rest will be discarded. So we see automation in that respect, and the operators are moving towards that because of the liability and because of massive fines that are basically hanging over their heads.
Looks like you're well prepared for any challenges coming in the future. Anything you'd like to comment or to contribute from the panelists to this topic?
I just want to say that the regulators should not forget why they're regulating. Sometimes it's a power trip for them. It's becoming a power trip.
That's so true, yes.
They're regulating to protect the customer, the player. When they forget this reasoning, they start saying, well, let them do this too, let them do this too, let them bring this paper too, let them confirm this as well. And it becomes a situation where it has nothing to do with the player. It just becomes like, I'm in charge, so I'll demand whatever I want, and who are you to say? And obviously when license is not a right but a privilege, you don't have a lot to complain. You can't go and say, well, I'm investing so much money in your jurisdiction, because they're not obliged to give you this license. It's a privilege. So you are at their mercy. They will give you the license. They don't want, they won't give you the license. So regulators simply have to remember whom they're working for. They're working for the consumer. And if consumer is protected, that should be the stop. That's pretty much it.
Which would also apply for the legislator in gaming.
I just want to add something from our issues with licenses and jurisdictions are not with liability, because over time our compliance, risk, fraud, everything that all the departments that handle the players became very professional, and they know what they're doing. So even if we have a dispute, it's quite a professional process. Most of our issues, I don't know if you're going to this issue, are basically the taxes. I mean, that's our main issue as an operator.
That's true. Tar, you wanted to add something?
I will relate. Also, I agree with what you have said on the tax issue. But of course, we're all keeping the law, and we all need to pay the tax.
And I don't think they care about the players, because I think they care about their income.
That's a very interesting, and that's what you said, and that's what also Val said, and I will relate to that. A few months ago, I met the Romanian regulator, a very impressive woman. I would probably invite her next year for the Women in iGaming panel, if she would agree to come. Odeta Nestor from Romania. She's a regulator in Romania. And I spoke with her on something which really interested some of my clients. And I want to understand the idea. In Romania, it's one of the only jurisdictions where you have a hardcore affiliate regulation where you pay 6,000 euro and you actually can be a licensed affiliate. So what's the process? You pay 6,000 euro, the money that you pay, you undergo some kind of license, and then you are a licensed affiliate under the Romanian regulation. And the Romania is quite starting to be very big now. Now, the idea is that I spoke with her and I tried to understand what's the logic, and what's the logic. I understand the reasoning why to regulate an affiliate, but the problem with Romania is that the enforcement on that part was low. What I mean is like that. I have clients ask me, why should I pay 6,000 euro for some affiliates? They like to call themselves millionaires in pajamas, but actually, you know, they're in pajamas most of the day working with a computer. Some of them do 50K a day, but some of them do also 500 or 100K, $100 a day. For them to pay $6,000 when they know that the other guy from the other way in the other sector in Bucharest,
A year?
a day.
No, the 6,000 is one-off, or?
A year. 6,000 euro a year. It's a considerable amount of money. For me, if I see it in the eyes of private affiliates working at home and seeing the same affiliates, the same funnels working on the other sector in Bucharest and doing the same amount of money, and there is no enforcement. No one actually, or maybe there is, but the enforcement is not that big to motivate those affiliates to be regulated. So what I'm saying here, also the enforcement should be to make a fair game. You cannot come and charge 6,000 euro for an affiliate licensing regime if there is no way to enforce it.
Right, thank you so much. Finally, are there any questions from the floor? I'd like to give you the opportunity to raise your question, address it to some of the panelists if you want. If this is not the case, then I have a final question. Did you enjoy the event and all the panels today? And if so, please join me in spending some applause to the panelists. Thank you.